Good morning, Grace City. Who's wide awake? Who's glad to be alive? Hey, that's good stuff. It's awesome to be back here in Georgia. This is actually where my family began. We lived in Alpharetta for about 7 years, and it's also where the Radiance Foundation began. We wanted to just tackle these culture-shaping issues, and my wife was a teacher. I worked as a creative professional in the ad agency world, and we tried to figure out how do we equip people, especially Christians, to be able to engage in these issues that too often we're the ones who are silent. Why, while the world is out there screaming a lie, do we choose to just cower often? I don't mean anybody in here. I'm talking about the other Christians. I'm just saying. So we started the Radiance Foundation to do three things. We wanted to illuminate, educate, and motivate. We wanted to illuminate the truth that every human life has God-given purpose. Whether you're planned, unplanned, able, or disabled, every human life has God-given purpose. Then we want to educate about all the easy topics. We talk about the comfortable ones. We talk about abortion, because without life, nothing else matters. We talk about adoption. We talk about fatherlessness, racism, sexuality, free speech, religious liberty, and the war on common sense. How many of you know there is a war being waged on common sense? Men, you cannot get pregnant. Just trying to get that across. Just saying. And then motivate. How many of you are good at motivating people? By a show of hands. One guy over here. Okay. Wow, we need a self-esteem seminar later, Josh. Because maybe you're better at self-motivation. But see, what good is the knowledge that we acquire? What good is our faith if we don't put it into action? So we started the Radiance Foundation to do these things. In fact, one of the first campaigns that we did at the Radiance Foundation was to highlight the hugely disproportionate impact of abortion in the Black community. And that went over really well. You combine two of the easiest topics possible, race and abortion. And you talk about the historic racism and the present racism of Planned Parenthood. And you talk about the deliberate targeting of the Black community, where 400 lives are killed by Planned Parenthood every single day. We launched this campaign. This is back in 2010, our first campaign. We did many more after that in cities across the country. And we were denounced by the ACLU, denounced by Planned Parenthood, which, I mean, if you're denounced by those two groups, you're obviously doing something right. But we were passionate about illuminating not only the devastation that abortion causes, regardless of hue of skin, but we were passionate about providing the resources, letting people know what resources are available, calling men to responsibility. Fatherhood begins in the womb. It actually begins at the moment of fertilization. But we need men to step up. Can I get an amen? And we have a culture that keeps telling men, don't worry about it. Just pay for the abortion, you get out of it. And that has led to such a culture of abandonment. And so through the Radiance Foundation, we love creating stuff that's fearless, that's factual, and that's freeing. As a creative professional, I call myself a factivist because it's okay to be an activist, but it's more important to be a factivist. As Christians, we need to know the context of issues because context brings clarity. We can't act without the facts. And we see the consequences of that happening. Social movements that just act out of emotions. Look, emotions do not set us free. Truth does. Amen? And so we love creating content. If you go to radiance.life, the graphics that we have, the op-eds, fact sheets, we have books. Actually, books are right out here in the lobby. You can see us afterward. But we have children's books and working on actually another book. But these are the three that we have currently. The one on the left, written by my favorite author. Her name is Bethany Bomberger. And it's an adorably illustrated children's book to teach an age-appropriate pro-life worldview to kids. We can't wait until they're teenagers. We can't wait until they're in college. We have to teach our children before a broken world reaches them. Amen? I mean, the world is out there indoctrinating our children. We're based in Loudoun County, Virginia. I don't know if you've ever heard of Loudoun County, but you've heard about some school boards going wild all across the country. Well, our county is one of those. And it's insane for us as parents, particularly Christian parents, to simply just sit back and allow others to say, you know what? Basic biological facts don't matter. So that's why we wrote this book, which is crazy. I mean, if we'd written it 10 years ago, people would be like, what? She is she. What are you talking about? But yes, she is she. Say it with me. She is she. It's so crazy that we have to write something like this, but this book just affirms beautiful, biological, undeniable her. We live in a culture right now that's trying to erase girls, trying to erase women, And we're not all about that. Of course, we believe in gender equality, so we also have the book, He is He, which will be released in a few months. But we have to teach our children some of these basic truths, and there's a way to convey that in a way that's just uplifting and affirming, and that's what we try to do. And the book in the middle is Not Equal, Civil Rights Gone Wrong, which was born out of my experience when we launched our billboard campaigns. Attacked by Planned Parenthood. I mean, they put out a 20-minute, what they called a documentary, I call it a crockumentary. It was 20 minutes of them celebrating themselves, and it featured all African Americans talking about how great Planned Parenthood is and how necessary abortion was in the black community. So, I mean, if you have a multi-billion-dollar abortion industry that's threatened by a husband and wife, at that time, husband and wife who had 3 children, 2 kids in diapers, and had about $20 to our name, okay, bring on the David versus Goliath story. We'll keep on fighting. And so these are born out of our experiences, and hopefully they inform and inspire you. And everything that we do is really rooted in 1 Corinthians 13:6, which says, love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. And we have a culture that is so confused about what love is. It's not hashtag love is love, but it is God is love. And that love will give up its life for someone else. And our culture doesn't quite understand that. Our culture understands giving up somebody else's life so that you can get ahead. But that self-sacrificial love, not so much. And so that's why we talk about love. This is one of the things I love to emphasize. It says, love every human being, not every human doing. When we get this wrong, we get so much wrong. So when we talk about our life principles, we break it down into 4 different main points. And the L, the most important one that we should always start off with, of course, is love one another. Now, I grew up with 12 siblings. We had 1.5 bathrooms in our farmhouse. Sometimes I didn't have a whole lot of love for my sisters. But see, when you're called to love one another, it's everybody. We're supposed to love the ones that we would love to hate. Somebody said that pretty loud. I didn't know if there was an experience there with an in-law. It's hard. Sometimes our coworkers or neighbors, but we're called to love one another. And who gives us that command? Of course, Jesus does in John 13:34. And he says, a new command I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, you must love one another. It's that self-sacrificial love. It's the person of Christ who hung on that cross, and we live in a day and age where people want to split us into the oppressed and the oppressors. I'm half white and half black, so I guess I'm both the oppressed and the oppressor. I don't even know. But Jesus forgave his oppressors. On that cross, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. That's a love that many of us don't quite understand. Yet it's the love that we're supposed to pursue. And I thank God that my parents loved the mess out of all of us. They knew that they were called. How many of you have felt God's calling your life toward a particular thing? Anybody in here? Man, when God calls you, even though it may seem impossible, like this isn't in the natural. Like my wife and Bethany, my amazing wife, I love her like crazy. Our lives don't make sense on paper. When she left her full-time job as a teacher, she taught for 13 years in both public and private school. I left my job as a creative director in the ad agency world, and we went into running a nonprofit, which we knew nothing about. We had no money. It didn't make sense. You see, God isn't asking you, wait till it makes sense, then follow your calling. No. When he calls you, he's going to equip and enable you. And my parents felt called to adopt, particularly those that the rest of the world so easily discards.
Life is never picture perfect. Human beings come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, and abilities. No matter how much we plan, no matter how much we think we're prepared, the unplanned happens all the time. It's how we respond to the unexpected that shows our true humanity. But many do not see the value of every human life. Too many are willing to discard those who don't fit the picture of perfection. Abortion destroys the chance to love and to be loved. We never know what will fill the frames of our lives or how empty those frames can be when we allow exceptions.
Every life is a gift.
Every life is a gift. We have a culture that sees human life as a burden. But God says children are a blessing. And I thank God that my parents had that mentality. I mean, they adopted 10 children. Now, here's a before picture, so you can kind of get an understanding of the growth here. But it started with 5, 3 kids, my parents, Henry and Andrea Bomberger, and their 3 firstborn children. And I like to call them the homemade ones. But then came along an exotic import, and that was me. In fact, this is the first moment my mom was able to hold me, and I know, do that again. I heard some. I know. At one point in my life, I was adorable, and I don't know what happened. But it's amazing when we think about the catalyst of things. People will often ask, well, what inspired your parents to adopt? And sometimes you kind of hear that I don't know, the subtext or the undertone, like, what possessed your parents to adopt? 2 things, love and brokenness. My mom experienced just the incredible heartbreak of having her parents divorced. My mom grew up in a trailer park. She grew up with an alcoholic father who was incredibly emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive. So at the age of 5, her parents separated, and so my mom was placed in a children's home for an entire year. Can you imagine being 5 years old and being placed in a children's home? And so it was at that time that she noticed that a girl who had physical disabilities never had anybody to visit her. At least my mom had her mom and her dad visit her separately, but no one came to see that little girl. And that moved the heart of a 5-year-old, which is why when we talk about church, man, we need to pour into our kids. It's not, they don't become leaders like later on in life. They can lead right there and then, because it was at the age of 5 that she made a decision and prayed to God, God, help me be a mommy to those who don't have one. That's where the heart for adoption began. She met the most amazing man that I've ever known, my dad, and he shared the same heart, because if you're gonna adopt 10 kids, you better be on the same wavelength. Can I get an amen? Gotta be in agreement. But my parents knew that they were called to adopt before they even had their biological children. My dad, here's the reason why I love being a husband, the reason why I love being a father. My mom and my dad are who shaped me. They love Jesus. And when you love Jesus, the natural outflow is loving people. And they love the mess out of us. My dad loved those that other men abandoned. Now, not everybody can say this, but my dad was the same man at home as he was outside of the home. He loved Jesus in the house, outside of the house. And that's why when I say Christ before color, we live in a culture that's so fixated with the color of our skin. Let's categorize ourselves. Let's separate ourselves. God never created color for us to separate ourselves by it, but to enjoy and to celebrate it. And I know people mean well and they say we should be colorblind. No, see the color. It's beautiful. I mean, Acts 17:26, from one blood God created us all. We are one human race. Can I get an amen? And that's what I learned. I grew up in a slightly mixed family of white, black, Native American, Vietnamese, just able, disabled, just a whole mixture. And it's amazing because you get to see things differently. When we refuse to look through the broken filters of the world wants us to look through the filter of gender, the filter of race, the filter of socioeconomic class, whatever the filter. We need to stop looking through those filters. Instead, look through the breakthrough filter of Christ. And when you do that, you see things differently. You see how every individual is made in the image of God. And you react differently to situations. And I thank God for parents who poured that into me. I will say, as someone who talks about fatherlessness a lot, I've worked in programs with so many fatherless kids long before I even got married. And man, my heart would just break because I did have a father who poured himself into us. And so losing him at the height of COVID was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. That was in January 2021. He actually passed away on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which to me is so crazy. The most pro-life man I've ever known. He didn't have to carry a sign, which is nothing wrong with carrying a sign. He didn't have to be political because he was not a political guy. He just lived it out. Loved the mess out of all of us. And so when he passed away, it was really hard to lose a man who just unconditionally loved us and unleashed God-given purpose. He and my mama unleashed God-given purpose in our lives. But I love this verse that my mom had put on his headstone. from 1 Corinthians 16, 16, 13, and 14 says, be on your guard, stand firm in the faith. Be courageous, be strong, and do everything, not just some things, but do everything with love. That's not easy. In a culture that wants to hate you, I mean, especially the work that we do through the Radiance Foundation, we speak in some friendly environments and some not so friendly environments. Spoken at Harvard, Princeton, University of Notre Dame, Penn State, USC, was smoke bombed out of UT Austin. That was crazy. I mean, you're going to be loved by some, but hated by many. And the thing we have to get in our heads as Christians, we got to get over it. I remember speaking at a conference and someone asked during a Q&A session, well, what do we do if people call you names? I'm like, get over it. They're going to hate you. Jesus said, you will be hated for my name's sake, so get over it. It doesn't matter if people unfriend you in real life or online. It's okay. But speaking the truth in love with a dash of sarcasm, I do encourage that. But I love that our parents didn't listen to the naysayers who said, well, how are you going to love a kid who doesn't look like you, isn't the same color as you, has disabilities? Their life is going to be so hard. Life is hard sometimes. And quite honestly, I think adversity makes us better human beings. And I love this old article. It says here what I feel about that phrase, unwanted child. It says here, unwanted children find their wanted. There's no such thing as unwanted. I mean, maybe some of us have been unwanted by a biological parent or parents, but we are all wanted by someone. And here is the whole family. I will say that I was the favorite in the family. I'm the one in the checkered shirt in the middle. Everybody's got afros in the picture. But this is what happens when you defy the world's low expectations and love. I mean, people talk about trauma. I mean, we're a society right now that actually, you don't want to deny that there's trauma. Obviously, with 10 adopted children, most of us out of the foster care system, there's been a lot of trauma. But here's the thing, as Christians, we work to reduce suffering, we work to reduce trauma. So trauma should be a reference point, not a resting place. And I thank God for the love of my parents that helped change that trauma into triumph. And so here you can see, as I mentioned, white, black, Native American, Vietnamese, able, disabled. Everyone in this picture has special needs, just like everyone in the sanctuary has special needs, which are to love and to be loved. In fact, I want to show you when you hear the phrase unwanted child, because this is the DNA of the abortion industry. Because the abortion industry says if you're unplanned, you're going to be unwanted and you're going to be unloved. And it's a lie. And so this is what supposedly unwanted looks like. It's my whole family, my brothers, my sisters, their spouses, their children, no extended family members except for one. Actually, there's a little grandma in the middle of the picture. And so this is what supposedly unwanted looks like. So this is, I feel like I'm standing in the way, but there's 64 people there. So what's crazy is that this was taken 7 years ago. And so the family has increased by 15 more through new marriages, births, and new adoptions. In fact, some of my nieces and nephews are adoptive parents. And it's a legacy. It's amazing. A legacy is such a powerful thing. My mom and my dad, of not knowing what they were doing. Most parents don't, newsflash, most parents don't really know what they're doing. I hate to break the news to anybody here. There's really no magic formula. I mean, and you don't have to adopt 10 kids to not necessarily know what you're doing. You can have one child who's biologically related, and you still wonder whose child that is. But there's no surefire way. You don't know. But it's amazing when your faith is in God. He's like, I got this. People ask my mom all the time, how did you survive? How did you survive? Anybody here raise 13 teenagers? By a show of hands, anybody? You can have one teenager, and you're like, that's going to kill me. I'm just saying, it's not easy, but she answers the same way. It's God. It was Jesus in their lives. This picture is possible, too, because of courageous birth moms who chose to be stronger than their circumstances. We can all be stronger than our circumstances. I've never met my birth mom. I searched for her years ago in an official search, and it came up without a response. And all I really wanted to do was to thank her. I sent a song that I had written called Meant to Be. And all I wanted to do is say thank you. Thank you that you went through the incredible, horrific experience you went through and still gave me the gift of life, gave me the gift of adoption. And so I've figured, how can I show all the things I've been able to become in my life by the grace of God because of her singular decision So I wrote the lyrics, I sang the lyrics to this, and I figured maybe if I never met her face to face, that maybe some way, somehow, she would see it online. And so this is my tribute to my birth mom, just thanking her for her courage.
You couldn't see what I would be. It wasn't part of your plan. Stronger than your circumstance, you gave my life a chance. Touching the future before it began. You're the reason I am here. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose.
We talk about the issue of abortion, and inevitably gets to that question, what about rape? I'm the tangible example of it. I'm the 1% that's used 100% of the time to justify abortion. But the circumstances of our conception never change the condition of our worth. Has anyone in here controlled the circumstances of their conception? By show of hands, anybody? Yeah, because we can't. It would be weird. But yet we pretend that we can be arbiters of human value. My hope, too, was that at one point I would meet my birth mom and just see the prayers over the years that she got the wholeness and healing that she needed. Because that's important. Sometimes we can forget that part of it. So when I talk about the life principles, love one another is the first one. The I in life is identify the lie. How do we deal with a culture that is so broken if we can't first identify the lie and speak to it? 7 out of 10 who identify as Christians, 7 out of 10 people, 70% basically of America claims to be Christian, but 6%, only 6% of those actually have a biblical worldview. It's why we're seeing the fallout that we have in our culture today. When I talk about identifying a lie, Ephesians 14 says, then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever. They sound like the truth. Wow. We've got a lot of stuff that kind of sounds Christian-like, but it's why we always have to go to the best resource, the Word of God. Test everything, people. Test everything. And so there's some lies, some basic cultural lies when it comes to the issue of life, like this. We don't know when human life begins. Yes, we do. We've known for hundreds of years. We know when human life begins. In fact, the second president of Planned Parenthood, his name was Guttmacher, Alan F. Guttmacher. He was an OBGYN. He wrote a book, Life in the Making, and he wrote in the beginning of it, it's hard to imagine a time when we didn't know when this was true, when human life begins. This is the second president of Planned Parenthood. We know when it begins at fertilization. A recent study done surveyed over 5,000 biologists, and 95% of biologists confirmed the scientific fact, that human life begins at fertilization. We shouldn't have to struggle with it. We shouldn't have to say, well, you know what? I believe, my faith teaches me that human life. No, don't. Just say, science confirms the fact that human life begins at fertilization. Planned Parenthood knew that. This is one of their brochures from the late 30s. Planned Parenthood used to be known as the Birth Control Federation of America, just changed their names. And you see their first slogan, every child a wanted child. Because every unwanted child, a dead child, just didn't have the same ring, I guess. But this is who they've been. Their whole thing is predicated on children being wanted, because wantedness equals worth, I guess. Well, thank goodness my parents didn't believe that. But in this same brochure, it asks about birth control and is it an abortion? Planned Parenthood answers this question. This is 1938. And they answer the question, is birth control an abortion? And they say, no, it's not. And then they say, abortion kills life after it has begun. They knew that in 1938, but don't know that in 2023? Of course they know that. And I need to say this too. When we talk about the issue of abortion, our organization is relentless about exposing an industry that exploits women and kills human life. And we are endlessly compassionate toward those who've had an abortion. In fact, we have resources. If you go to radiance.life/heal, there are resources for women and men. There are local pregnancy centers that offer post-abortion healing. There are ones online as well. But we want you to know that God is a God of forgiveness. I mean, anybody here never sinned? Okay, because if you raise your hand, that would be, I guess, your first one. But everyone sins, everyone's broken, everyone needs wholeness and healing, including those who work in the abortion industry. And we need to pray for their deliverance as well. But this is the kind of stuff that Planned Parenthood tweets. Virginity is a social construct. Really? It's a patriarchal construct that apparently hurts everyone. Maybe it might hurt you emotionally or physically in the sense that you're not fulfilling whatever that momentary need is or that want. But how many people have died from virginity? 0. How many have died from abortion since Roe v. Wade? 65 million. Virginity is not a social construct, it's a biblical principle. We live in a world that's so confused about love, which is why you see on the right side Planned Parenthood tweeting. Actually, what do you even call it now? It's not Twitter anymore, so they X'd it. I don't even know what you call it anymore, but abortion is love. Well, this goes along with the whole love is love, because if you don't have an understanding of what love truly is, then you can say things like this. And so the other lie that we have to combat is the whole my body, my choice. From a secular standpoint, if you don't have life, if that's not the first right, then you have no body, then you have no autonomy. So you actually need life first to even have this magical bodily autonomy. In the Christian sense, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says this, or do you not know that your body, guys and girls, that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own. You're not your own, for you were bought with a price, so glorify God with your body. That goes for all of us. My body, my choice. It's so funny because the same people who scream my body, my choice, and that all this stuff is patriarchal, they had no problem with 7 men in black robes at the Supreme Court giving us the violence of Roe v. Wade. Those men can speak, but when a man stands up for life, stands up for a woman, helps to stop the exploitation of women, acts responsibly like men should do, so we don't even have to get to that place of considering abortion, no, they're not allowed to speak. That's why sometimes you just have to illuminate the ridiculousness of what I call fake feminism. And so in our house, we try to pull our kids into our ministry and allow their talents that God has given them to be used. So my youngest daughter, Aaliyah, is joining me as we discuss the ridiculousness of fake feminism.
They love to tell ya, abortion's so good for ya. Just pay a fee and get equality. Their fraud's extensive, their lies defenseless. Planned Parenthood's been counting for a century. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
This is basic health care.
Thousands of women died before Roe every year.
We're not political. Planned Parenthood, we're nonpartisan.
Planned Parenthood is fake feminism. Fake feminism. Fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
So there you have it. Fake feminism summed up in a jingle. And if you needed to know more about Planned Parenthood, we have a fact sheet out there that actually shows you how every major medical service to women at Planned Parenthood has been plummeting for over 10 years. Every one, except for one act, the act of abortion. Their profit continues to go up as their medical services to women continue to plummet. So the F, the letter F, stands for fight the lie. Because what good is it to identify the lie if you don't fight the lie? Ephesians 6:10-11 says, finally be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. And we have to make sure that we're understanding that these are spiritual battles. Spiritual first. I know people say, well, I don't want to get political. First of all, every issue is a moral and spiritual issue. Every issue. The way that we take care of it is legislatively. The way that we take care of it sometimes is politically. But don't be thrown by that. Every issue is a moral and spiritual issue, which is why churches need to be leading movements of justice, not following broken movements. Evil flourishes when churches choose to be silent about abortion or any form of injustice. One of the ways that we fight the lie is we partner with American Heritage Girls, which is the alternative to Girl Scouts, a biblically based organization, American Heritage Girls, and so they can now earn their pro-life kids patch, and so we have this curriculum and these videos that teach young people age appropriately about what it means to be pro-life, what it means to value every human life. Another way that we fight it is through celebrating adoption. I'm slightly partial to adoption because it's the essence of salvation. There's no salvation without adoption. Adoption shouldn't be some second nature, third nature thing to Christians. It should be first nature. That doesn't mean everybody has to become an adoptive parent, but there's so much more that we can do to encourage a culture that supports life. And for all those people who say, well, it's better off, for a child to be aborted than to have to grow up in a single parent home. Are you kidding me? Greatness has arisen out of single parent homes. Greatness has arisen out of poverty. Greatness has arisen out of some of the most insanely difficult circumstances. When people talk about it's better for someone to be aborted than to possibly face possible future suffering, I put it this way: no one is better off dead. We are all better off loved. Can I get an amen? Another way we fight the lie is fighting some of these powerful LGBT groups like ACLU and Land Illegal that are now trying to shut down faith-based adoption agencies. They are shutting them down because they believe that children flourish best in a married mother-father home, and even some of the single-parent homes that have a biblical worldview. But these groups say, nope, you can't have that belief, so they've been trying to shut us down. Another way we fight this is to combat the attacks on the one resource when it comes to pregnancy that exists across our country, 3,000 pregnancy centers that offer all of their services for free, and yet there's a movement to shut them down. So that's why, let's just listen. There's someone who has her wisdom to impart to us.
In Massachusetts right now, those crisis pregnancy centers that are there to fool people who are looking for pregnancy termination help outnumber true abortion clinics by 3 to 1. We need to shut them down here in Massachusetts, and we need to shut them down all around the country. You should not be able to torture a pregnant person like that.
Okay, first, a few things to unpack. One, it's a great thing that pregnancy centers outnumber abortion mills. Can we just give a hand clap for that? That's a good thing. Secondly, I'm sorry, women. I'm sorry that you don't get to have your own label of woman. You are not a pregnant person. You're not a person with a period. You are not a birthing person. You are women. Can I get an amen in here? The erasure of women is just crazy. And so this is the torture. I'm sorry. I didn't get approval for this, but this is the torture that she's talking about. It's this. It's torture to actually provide material support to those who want to parent, to give parenting classes, life skills classes, sometimes GED education classes. This is what happens in so many pregnancy centers across the country, including some of them provide prenatal care, STD testing, and treatment. I mean, this is supposedly torture to actually say, you know what, I'm going to stand with you. So this is why we go to the last part here, life. The E stands for expect the victory, because why do you love one another? Identify the lie, fight the lie if you're not going to expect the victory. Romans 8:37 says this, no, despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loved us. Overwhelming victory. I mean, look what happened in June 2022 when it felt impossible. And I love when God moves that way. When people feel like this can't happen in the natural, well, guess what? He doesn't work in the natural. Works in the supernatural. And so when we expect the victory, things like this happen. Roe v. Wade overturned, a supremely wrong decision. Can we just say thank you, Lord, for that? And it's not the end. There are battles waging in state after state, and a multi-billion-dollar abortion industry is holding tight to its money and its mission. One of the things we do, too, to celebrate is our organization has what's called the Adopted and Loved Fund. If you go to adoptedandloved.com, we named this after my parents, Henry and Andrea Bomberger. And there are 2 families here real quickly that we were able to give substantial grants to so they could adopt this family. The Tukes family were married for 20 years, wanted children, could not have children, knew that God called them to be parents. On their 20th anniversary, little baby Hannah came into their lives. Their first child, their first adopted child. Another family, the Cross family, 10 years married, went through all kinds of situations. She actually aborted her child in an earlier marriage and regretted it her whole life. God restores. Can I get an amen? And so they, on their 10th anniversary, were able to adopt their youngest son, Josiah, which means Yahweh heals. Life principles. Love one another, identify the lie, fight the lie, and expect the victory. We know about the fear and confusion that a lot of young women face, and young men, with an unplanned pregnancy, because my wife went through that. Before we were married, she was in her late 20s, just left a toxic relationship. She was a teacher at the time. Her fellow teachers just said, well, just abort it. She found out she was pregnant. They said, just abort it. It's amazing what happens. If you listen to the world, it will take you in one trajectory. But if you listen to God, he takes you on an entirely different trajectory. My baby girl, Radiance, that we just dropped off. Whew. Truth never gets old. We just dropped her off for college, so now my baby girl is a college girl. But the beautiful reverberations from my birth mom's singular decision looks like this. This is my family, my kiddos. I have 4 awesome kiddos. 4 kids. Out of the 4, 3 were unplanned. All 4 were homeschooled. Thank you. Keep praying for us. But my youngest, Aaliyah, my oldest, Radiance, my oldest son, Makai, and my youngest son, Justice. In fact, that video that you saw earlier of all the things I've been able to become in my life, when I was playing that track and I was working on that, Aaliyah heard that track. She's like, oh, Daddy, I love that song. Can I sing to it? I was like, anytime she offered to sing, I was like, yes. So she was 11 years old at that time. But Aaliyah, if you don't mind coming up here, she's here with me. She's 14 years old today. She is my princess warrior, oh my goodness. But I think about the decisions my birth mom made. She wouldn't exist if my birth mom didn't choose to be stronger than her circumstances. So she's just gonna leave you with an encouragement, right? I'm gonna try not to cry. I'm a sappy dad, I ain't gonna lie. You ready?
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Shine through me.
this fight for truth and life. When we shine our light in the darkness, you make lives like mine and my family possible. Thank you.